Hmm. I really do not like that album cover. I really do not like that album cover. To me, it's probably one of Bowie's worst album covers. I'd say that's the worst one if we're not counting the one where it's like a baby and it's like Bowie's face on it.
That's toy.
Yeah, if we're not doing Toy, then yeah, that's the worst sound cover. But if not, I'd say Toy is the worst sound cover by far.
Boom.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Sound Lab Studios and our series on David Bowie. This is going to be fun. We are on episode number 3, The Man Who Sold the World. How are you guys doing today, Nick and Bryer?
I'm good.
I'll let Bryer go first.
Yeah, I'm just doing good. Having a nice quiet evening here. Just enjoying the Sunday. Yeah, not much to say. Just kind of chilled.
As for me, I had a couple of things I had to do. I had to get paper towels from the grocery store. I had a couple of chores to do. I had a really good day, for the most part, just lazing on a Sunday afternoon.
Clean reference there. Well, today we're going to be reviewing David Bowie's third studio album titled The Man Who Sold the World. And no, we're not talking about a Nirvana song. Bowie did it first. Bryer, do you have any background information for us? Background information.
Yes, I do. And quite a bit has happened since the last one. His last album, his second self-titled album, definitely showed more promise. But again, commercially, was aside from the big hit Space Oddity, the album itself still wasn't really making any business. And it was also around this time, it's when he was having trouble with his label. He was on Philips on the last album, but he was just kind of not seeing eye to eye with them anymore. And yeah, he decided to best for a change. And one of the big changes he did was he decided to form his own backing band. And here you have a couple people he brought in. Originally, this backup band was called Hype. And the people on that he brought in was a guy named Tony Visconti on bass, who would also end up producing the album. You have John Cambridge. Of course, he's known for his kind of stage name, Mick Woody Woodmacy on drums. And of course, you have a young guitar player by the name of Mick Ronson. And they pretty much played with him live around this time. And this was also around the time during the live shows where David was beginning to play around with costumes on stage, definitely being a bit more expressive, a lot more theatrics coming into the fold here. And he was starting to get a little bit more attention. And when it came to the album, I've heard, based on what people have said during the recordings, that David was actually not as, not productive, or not as he wasn't there like people would have liked, because of two reasons. One, for the label disputes, like I mentioned before, and also he was going to get married around this time. So he was kind of preoccupied with all that. And because of that, it's really comes down to Mick Ronson and Tony Visconti to kind of do most of the arranging on a lot of the songs. Of course, David had the lyrics, and yeah, Mick and Tony just kind of taking those lyrics and just doing their own thing. And this is kind of why this is kind of seen as another shift in Bowie's like progression, because first album, weird music hall, quirky music. Second album, a lot more folky, folk rock driven. But here we have a lot more of a hard rock sort of direction. And lyrically, he's also going more on the more darker themes that Bowie was going into. A lot of the lyrics on this album deal with alienation and insanity, violence, identity, even sexuality, which again be trademarks in his glam period, which we'll get to later. And when it came to titling the album, it actually went through a couple changes. I think the original name for this album was going to be called Metro Ballist, but clearly the label was like, yeah, we're not using that. And David was not happy about that. So he tried to come up with another name because I know David released another single called Holy Holy, and he hoped that would be the title of the album, but only if that single charted. Long story short, yeah, it flopped terribly, so that was not going to work either. So they just decided with The Man Who Sold the World, they thought that would be a good one. They felt that was like a much more engaging title. And yeah, the album came out on November 4th, 1970. So this is his first album of the 70s. And of course, again, another kind of commercial failure. Still didn't quite live up to expectations. And actually, Tony Visconti and David Bowie actually kind of parted ways after this. They would not really work again for a few years. But of course, Tony will be back. We'll get to that later. But and also even Mick Ronson and even Woody also left, which will kind of influence the next album as well. And so yeah, like I said, commercially didn't do well, but critically it actually got fairly well. It actually got decent reviews. And today it's pretty much seen as kind of an underrated gem in his discography, kind of the forgotten album that definitely has has some great influences. Of course, the album would go on to influence a number of bands and artists. Of course, the most notable ones I found out were The Cure, Nine Inch Nails, and of course, goes without saying, Kurt Cobain. But that's another story. Um, and there we go. The album got to number 24 in the UK. So actually, again, even to sell well, it still charted decently well, which is kind of interesting. But in the US, it only got to number 105. So not really cracking the US market. But other than that, that's pretty much the background info of this album.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say now, what do we think about the cover? But funny story, there's four different covers to this album. So let me go through the background information of the cover. So this was one of the original design that was commissioned for this album. David Bowie commissioned an artist to draw something based on Running Gun Blues, the lyrics of that song, and he came up with this. And you see, it's got a speech bubble. The speech bubble was supposed to say, "Roll up your sleeves and show us your arms," but people decided not to put the record company said no because they thought that that was a drug reference and B, a gun reference. So they said, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to leave it blank. And then on the inside of the gatefold sleeve was supposed to be what Bryer has there, the UK cover. If you could go ahead and there we go. That was supposed to be the gatefold image. But once again, David Bowie was a new artist, so they said, no, yeah, that's too expensive. So we got that. And then the third cover is, in just a moment, I'll show that. Here you go. Can you see that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever this album was reissued on RCA, when David Bowie switched labels again, they used this cover here.
That's
And
a cool art
then
shot.
finally, in Germany, the album cover was released as this.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that's an album cover. So, first off, what do we think about the cartoon cowboy cover, the original one here?
I'll let Brad go first on all of them.
Um, it's interesting. Um, I mean, I'll be honest, it's definitely my lead. Well, after seeing that German cover, I mean, this seems like a masterpiece now. Um, but I mean, the only problem I have is that, I mean, it's kind of ugly looking, especially the gunman you see, especially that face. I get what they're going for because, lyrically, I mean, it does fit the lyrics to the album, maybe a bit more because it does deal with like insanity because it's literally a gunman outside of an asylum. So on that front, I get it. But again, I just prefer the UK cover personally, but that's just me.
Nick.
Hmm. I really do not like that album cover. I really do not like that album cover. To me, it's probably one of Bowie's worst album covers, in my opinion. I mean, I'd say the worst one if we're counting. I mean, I'd say that's the worst one if we're not counting the one where it's like a baby and it's like Bowie's face on it.
That's toy.
Yeah, if we're not doing Toy, then yeah, that's the worst album cover. But if not, I'd say Toy is the worst album cover by far.
Okay.
Or as I like to call it, Mrs. and Mr. Wonderful's freaky baby child. Um,
For me, I think this kind of matches the dark humor of the lyrics of this album. And I know Bryer kind of touched on that. Nick's going to completely disagree, but I don't know when I hear some of these songs and kind of the more darker themes, I just think about this John Wayne knockoff in front of us in a insane asylum.
For me, I do prefer this version. Because you have Bowie and drag, which is always fun to see. Yeah, it's kind of trailblazing in the sense because you don't really see too many artists putting on full drag on their album covers too much. So in that front, I think it's kind of interesting.
I love this album cover. To me, this is by far the better of the four. I mean, I thought it was way better than compared to the two, but to me, man, this is just after looking at the other four, the other three, I'm like, yeah, this is a clear winner. I mean, to me, it's super ironic. You have this heavy music, but like on the front, you have the guy in drag. It's just, it's like complete opposites. You have a guy in drag, and then you have like some of the heaviest music. To me, the only way you could have made it more ironic is if he was like wearing like a what like a dress or like a real like wedding dress with like makeup on. That would be even more ironic.
Ziggy Stardust.
Like pink everywhere. It would be like, oh, it's gonna be a really big pop album. And it's like, what we're about to review music wise. That would
Guns
have
N'
been
Roses got nothing on this irony.
So this does definitely scream Bowie more. I know he was playing around with these costumes at this time, but again, I feel like, that would work perfectly as a gatefold because the way, like, I don't know, the position that he's sitting in and like the cards, I feel like, if this was a gatefold, you'd open it up and it would be a much bigger picture. I will say that German one is an abomination. It's like his face put onto a hand and it's a griffin. What do you guys think about that one, just briefly?
Yeah, that's terrible. I'm glad that you don't really see that at all.
All right, well that's it for the cover. Let's go ahead and get into the music. The first track on this album is called The Width of a Circle.
So yeah, Width of a Circle, of course, is the longest song on here. And man, this is a great opening song. Like I really do dig this more heavier version of David Bowie, and it's something he doesn't. I don't think he'll do at least this heavy. He doesn't really go this far. But I just really dig the overall sound of especially the guitar playing. I mean, Mick Ronson really is showing just what a great guitar player he is on this album. You just got this great hard rock, very blues rock sort of sound and even a little bit of a hints of progressive rock. And I liked different sections where they slow down for a little bit, and just there's a whole like, instrumental section. At some point, the acoustic guitar comes in, and I think it sounds really great there. And it picks back up, and you get a cool groove from the drum with the drumming, which is really nice. And Bowie's vocals surprisingly works well with this style. Definitely fits this hard rock sound. I think it's a very cool opening song. I really dig this one.
This is like crazy. Whenever you first start this song, the first thing you realize is that Tony Visconti's bass is going to be all over this album. This is also the first Bowie album to feature Mick Ronson, who features contributes amazing guitar parts to Bowie's albums. This song is just like hard rocking and just right off the gate. It kind of has all these different sections. I like the part where it slows down and goes like epic way to start out the album.
I gotta agree. This is an incredible way to start off the record. I remember when I first heard that, I remember being like, "Whoa, this is Bowie." And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. Very, very impressed by this song. It starts off heavy, and I'm like, okay, this is nice, this is cool. And then it like gets, I remember there's like a groove going on, like bum, bada, bum, 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 bum. Like, I'm vibing to this. This is an awesome, this is one of those songs where it keeps me in for 8 minutes. Uh, this might be my second favorite long song from David Bowie. My favorite David Bowie song, we'll get to that on a certain album that involves milk, peppers, and cocaine. What a great way to open the decade up in the 70s. I really enjoyed this one.
Okay, well, track number 2 is going to be All the Madmen.
Right, so this is the first song to kind of deal with insanity. Um, and it's basically just about this guy kind of refusing to leave an asylum in order to avoid um, seeing the harsh world. I think that's a kind of cool imagery right there. And you start off with a very ominous acoustic guitar intro. I really like the sound of that one. And then you hear like cymbals, and you hear a recorder come in, which is kind of nice. But then eventually the drums and guitars come in, and it's just another really good rock song right here. Again, the bass work is great. Um, there's even a bit of a spoken word section, which surprisingly wasn't, I didn't find that distracting. Um, and the song just gets even heavier, like around the 3 minute marks. It gets even further. And there's a keyboard section on here. I think that sounds kind of cool. You get some hand claps, adding some more elements to this one. But overall, this is another really good song.
Bowie's family had like a history of mental issues, and so he wrote a lot of songs about that to kind of bring that to the public. I know Bowie Brothers, or however you pronounce that, from the next album is about that as well as a few of the other songs on this one. I love whenever it comes in, it's like that day after day, they're taking me away. And then when you get to the chorus and it's got like those like recorders on it, it's like, whoa. And then there's like a synthesizer or something. It's like dim 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 when he goes like, and all the madmen dim 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 dim. And then in the middle, it just cuts out, and he just like starts doing the spoken word thing, and then there's all these high pitched voices and low pitched voices, and it's like, is this what it sounds like in your head whenever you're crazy? Like, is that what he's trying to go for here? If so, like, you've done a really good a really good job of that. This song is a journey, and it's just fantastic. If you haven't heard it, listen to it. It's a real gem on this album.
This was a really, really, really good song on the album. Again, it starts out soft, then it's getting a little harder. I'm like, okay, okay, we're getting there, we're getting there. And where Bryer said 3 minute mark, it just gets really heavy. I'm like, yeah. I mean, this is such a great song, but didn't make my top five. I really wanted it to. I really did. There's so many great songs on this album. To all the Bowie fans who say this is his first good album, I could see where you're coming from, because this album really marks his iconic sound.
Okay, track number 3, Black Country Rock.
Already, this is definitely a big highlight for me. Um, at this point, it's the heaviest song on the album. It's very upbeat. I love that guitar from Mick Ronson on here. Again, the bass playing is really great. Great drumming too, and even a nice guitar solo that Mick Ronson gets a chance to do. It's really nice. Um, it's actually pretty catchy too. It's one of the catchier songs on here, which I really enjoy. What's interesting is that David definitely does a different type of vocal style on here, and basically what he's trying to do, he's basically doing a T-Rex impression, because by this point he was good friends with Mark Bolan of T-Rex, and so he was kind of doing a little impression of him, which I think was kind of nice. I think that's kind of funny. But yeah, this is definitely a big highlight. I really enjoyed this song a lot.
You want to know something funny? This is actually one of my least favorite songs on the album. Don't shoot me. I still love it. I just don't like it as much as some of the other stuff. But I do like the guitar, and I like the Black Country Rock. And my favorite part is that bass, that like boom 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 boom, the little walk down that Tony Visconti does. Still great, but I just don't like it as much as some of the other stuff on here.
Man, Black Country Rock is like such a banker. I mean, again, it's like it has a Zeppelin vibe to it that I really enjoyed. Black Country Road. Like I can imagine, I don't know why, but I can imagine Plant doing something like Black Country Road, road. You know, really, I think the vocals were still, I think the vocals were great still by Bowie. I've heard a little bit from T-Rex. I've heard a song that I really like from them. I think it's called Jeepster.
Oh yeah,
"Bet
yeah.
My Jeepster for your love. That's one of my favorite songs from a certain movie soundtrack. But I could hear the resemblance of T-Rex. I like that as well. I'm like, there's something about the vocals that I really like that are so unique. And Bryer finally answered that for me.
Well, the next song is going to be the last song on side one, After All.
This one's kind of interesting because the past three songs were definitely a lot more electric guitar driven. This one kind of goes back to that acoustic sound that he did previously. Definitely the folk is a lot more prominent here, and David's vocals are a bit more softer, which is not bad. There's some nice backing vocals, which was kind of nice. And I like this. There's even some saxophone, which I thought was kind of nice. I like that little added detail to that one. And when during the bridge, there's like a little quirky section, which was kind of interesting. Um, and lyrically, it's interesting. It's basically just him just singing about like the writings of philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. He was pretty big into his philosophy at this point, so it's not I don't think it's the first time he's sung stuff in this topic. But it's interesting to see it back again. I will admit it's my probably my least favorite song on this album because it is kind of not as hard rocking as the other tracks, but it's still a fine song. I still think it's pretty nice.
I actually really like this song. I think it kind of has the folk elements of the last album, but with the weirdness of what he would be doing in the later period, especially those backing vocals that go, "Oh, by Jingo." I'm just like, whoa, like this is so trippy. And then you got like the guitar solo from Mick Ronson. It's just like, whoa.
I really like the song as well. I thought this was another fantastic song on the album. I'll agree. It is it is interesting that it's like very acoustic sounding compared to the last three songs where it's like really heavy. And yeah, it's like this sounds like something you get on the last album, Bowie 69. And does that affect my enjoyment of the song? Heck no, it doesn't. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed the song as well. It's a little weird, and I like the weirdness of it.
Side two is going to open up with Running Gun Blues.
Now we come back to the heavy side again. And this is another really great song here. And you have more great guitar work, and even some harmonica comes back in the fold here. And it's just a song that gets louder and again, very cool, very heavy, which I like a lot. And lyrically, again, kind of going back to that very dark sort of topic because it's basically just about this soldier who just goes through PTSD. He eventually just snaps and just goes on this big killing frenzy. Just I pretty much matches the music, I would say. And Bowie gets to put on different voices, which was again very fitting. This is another really nice, good song. I really enjoy this one too.
This song is crazy. Going into the mind of a serial killer and how PTSD can influence that, and the music just matches it so perfectly, especially the funny little voice he does at the beginning that almost sounds kind of like a happy, cheery little cartoon, but then you realize that he's singing about how he wants to go and shoot everybody up, and it's like, oh my gosh, like what? Very heavy, great guitar playing from Mick Ronson, and as always, insanely good bass from Tony Visconti on here.
Yeah, I really enjoy the song as well. I don't know why. Again, there's just I love the soft to hard aspect of it. I guess I like this song better than the other one that was doing it. Yeah, I love the vibe of this song. I love the vibe of the album. That's probably why I like this sound so much. It's just more of a vibe for me. Um, and no, there's like artistic direction going here, but for me, it's like I like to vibe with the hardness of what David Bowie was. So I wish he did. I know he's the Lizard and he did other things, but I wish he would have did one more album with this style of it, of just one more. Sadly, he's not like Ringo where he's alive to hear my prayers and do one more of it. So it is what it is.
Okay, our next song is Savior Machine.
All right. This is a pretty cool song. And, and lyrically could potentially see as seen as relevant as it's about AI. It's meant to save the world, but lo and behold, it goes awry, takes over. That aside, I really enjoyed the arrangement of this track. I like how it fades in, and you have the guitar again. Once again, sounds very heavy, and I really like Bowie's delivery on this one. I think his vocals were really cool, and you even get a keyboard solo, which was also really nice. And again, David's putting on different voices, playing different characters. It's a great guitar solo, bass and drums, top notch. This was another fantastic one. I really dug this one a lot. It's definitely a highlight for me.
This one is super cool. I love how it has a fade in at the beginning and it just kind of gets right into it with that drums and the playing around with the time signature swaps there at the beginning. This almost has like a King Crimson first album vibe to it almost, and there's also some jazz influence in there. I love the keyboards whenever he does the keyboard solo. And the storytelling on this is really cool. And people make a computer to solve all the world's problems. And the funny thing is, it actually does. And the reason that it turns rogue is because it gets bored of the world being perfect. So it's like, wow. You can tell Bowie was a very well-read individual with some of the lyrics on this album here, kind of delving into more thoughtful, artistic expressions. This one being no exception, very relevant and very ahead of its time concerning AI today. We have no idea where it's going, and hopefully it doesn't go rogue like the machine in the song here. But I just think that this song is just such a jam, and it's one of my favorite songs on the album.
Yeah, it's another really outstanding song on the album. I agree with everything you guys said. The fade in's really cool. Um, Again, I love the vibe of it. Bowie singing his heart out as usual. This is a song I don't really have much to say about. It's just a song that I really enjoyed all the way through.
Okay, now we're gonna get to She Shook Me Cold.
This song for sure definitely has a very Zeppelin coded sound to it. I even hear a little bit of a Cream as well, and even a bit of like what Jeff Beck would probably be doing around this time. Um, but yeah, I think it's very awesome. Again, the guitar playing for Mick Ronson is the big selling points. I mean, his guitar is killer on here, and the bass just has a very heavy sound, very high in the mix, which is awesome. Excellent guitar solo, and it gets faster as it goes, which is amazing. Yeah, this is a killer song. This is definitely a big highlight for me.
The guitars are just so heavy on this song. It's just like you get punched in the face with Mick Ronson's guitar wall on this song. It's just like they just start rocking out and jamming here. I will say though, this is not going to be in my top five, but I still do really like the song, especially like the heaviness. This is probably like one of the heaviest songs on this album.
Yeah, I enjoyed this song myself as well. I love the Cream sound of it, especially me and Bryer going through your Queen Cream series. Having that said, this is my least favorite song on the album because musically I think it's awesome. The guitars, there's like a section where the guitars and the drums were going crazy. Besides that, kind of a straightforward song compared to the other songs on the album because I feel like the other songs had things going for it. To me, this is definitely the most straightforward on the album. Having that said, this is an awesome song. I mean, there's a lot of songs on the debut and the second album where I'd put the song way above it, but it's just, again, this album has so much competition for it, so it's like, it's kind of hard. So
Okay, well, now we're going to get to the classic title track, The Man Who Sold the World.
It's funny because when this song came out originally, it really wasn't really seen as a classic when this came out. It really didn't become big or as well known as it is probably until Nirvana covered it for their Unplugged set. Now it's considered one of Bowie's classic tracks. But when you look at it, it's pretty clear why that iconic kind of guitar melody from Mick Ronson, that da na 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 da na da na na na, like very alluring, kind of really just really brings you in. Um, and even Bowie just has a very cool, very haunting kind of vocal delivery, which is very cool. And the percussion on here, again, very different, but it adds a lot to the vibe. It's very evocative, and that's pretty much what makes it stand out quite a bit because lyrically it's pretty cryptic, like it's pretty abstract on what he really means, but that's probably why it's like seen very highly. Just you can just interpret it in many different ways.
Wow, what a song. Starting out with that intro, that and then you get the sound of it's called a güiro or a güiro or something like that, that like the in the background, and oh, it's just so trippy. You're like, whoa, like what's going on right now? And the lyrics, I don't know what they mean. Like, who is the man who sold the world? Why did he sell the world? What did he sell the world for? What is a Gaisley stare? You know, like, and why did you think you were his friend? Were you really his friend? Like, you could just dissect these lyrics for hours and be like, what does this mean? Whatever it means, it's amazing. And I love the chorus, and I love how almost simplistic some of this song is musically. Like the guitar is pretty much just and then when you get to the chorus, it's just a major scale. Dun 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 dun. It's like, but it works so well. It works so well for this song. You're like, if someone wants to sit down and just play you'd be like, that's the man who sold the world. It just works so well for this song. And I love the outro where you get like the vocals are like, and it's just layering over the and then Mick Ronson even does a little bit of guitar improvisation there at the end, not as much as Cobain does on the Nirvana version, but we'll get to that when we review MTV Unplugged over on Ryan Camp's channel. Shout out to him. But man, this song is just fantastic. As for which version I like better, I will say I like the Bowie version and the Nirvana version equally. They're both great in their own facts.
this to me is one of the best songs on the album, for sure. I mean, of course, back then, um, it's definitely a classic amongst Bowie fans now. I mean, of course, back then it wasn't considered to be the classic it is then. But I will say, I listened to the Nirvana version again. I still think his version's terrible. I'm not gonna go more in depth on it because we're on the Bowie version, but I think Bowie's version's way better. I really want to like the Nirvana version, but this version's just so much better because I like the music aspect of it. I love the vocal effects. Um, I just think this is definitely a classic among classics for Bowie. I'm gonna be basic. This is one of my favorite songs on the album.
All right, the great album closer is going to be the Supermen.
So this is another one of his more kind of talking about philosophy again, going back to that Nijak uh, aspect, and even a little bit of H.P. Lovecraft. He has a little bit of those in there too. And I've also read, I don't know if it's really true, but apparently the riff to this song was actually given to him by Jimmy Page. I, again, I have no idea if that's true, but kind of cool. But besides that, the guitar riff is really cool. I like the guitar riff a lot, and this track also has a little bit of psychedelic tendencies I've noticed, which hey was kind of nice, like those details. Again, great drumming on this track as well. Very good guitar solo on this one. I don't have too much to say about it, but I think it's a pretty solid album closer. I really think it kind of ends the album on a really good note. But yeah, other than that, yeah, great rock song.
Oh, I think this song is amazing. I love how the beginning is bass and timpani. There's some timpani in there. Whenever you combine the two together, it's like boom, dun, 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 dun. And then there's like like a it sounds like a choir, but it's probably just a lot of layered vocals. They just rise up out of nowhere. But it's so cool how it's just like dun, 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 dun. And then Bowie comes in and the guitar comes in and it's like, oh, yeah, this is just a rocking song. And then you get like, the super god dies. Bow, 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 bow. It's like, wow. Bowie really knew how to end his albums. I mean, like he's got a lot of really great album closers. We'll talk more about some of his other album closers later on, but this is a fantastic way to end the record.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is one of the best songs on the album too. I think this is a fantastic way to close out the album. I gotta say the bookends on this album, by far the best bookends they've had so far. He's had so far. Yeah, the first album. I love Uncle Arthur, but please, Mr. Gravedigger, that exists. I love the festival, Freeform Festival and Space Oddity. I thought that those were great bookends, but the bookends on this album, I'm gonna say it, arguably his best bookends he's had in his career. Yeah, I'm going there. I'll see where you guys stand on that, but to me, by far best bookends. Um, I'd say that and Young Americans are two ones
Oh,
you could.
yeah. Young Americans has great bookends.
Yeah, Young Americans and Fame, Fame.
All right, well, that concludes the album. Let's go ahead and give our top five songs on the album here.
Right. For me, number five, I'm gonna go with Savior Machine. Number four, The Width of a Circle. Number three, Black Country Rock. Number two, The Man Who Sold the World. And my number one is gonna be She Shook Me Cold.
Okay. Wow.
I'm sorry, Bryer. That's crazy. Me and you
Wow.
disagree on the.
It's my second to least favorite, so I mean I still get it. That song is heavy.
Yeah, that's
But
probably why, because of the heavy factor of it. Because I like that heavy. That's heavy
yeah,
rock. So of course I'm gonna gravitate that a little bit more.
yeah.
Uh,
Uh I have number five is going to be All the Madmen with a special honorable mention to After All. Number four is Width of a Circle. Number three, The Supermen. Number two, Savior Machine. And my favorite is The Man Who Sold the World. I love that song.
okay, my number five is gonna be. I'll give my honorable mention. So, screw it. All four of them that didn't make my top five are honorable mentions. She Shook Me Cold, After All, Black Country Rock, and All the Madmen. Number five, Running Gun Blues. Number four, Savior Machine. Number three, The Man Who Sold the World. Number two, The Superman. I really like that song. And number one, The Width of the Circle. To me, that is the album.
That's a very heavy song.
It's like heavy. It's like 8 minutes of awesomeness, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Well, what are we gonna give this on a score from 1 to 10?
Right. So honestly, I'll say my score now, but I put an asterisk by it because it could potentially go up a little bit more. But for right now, I'm gonna give this a solid 9 out of 10. Again, he's just progressing. He's getting better with each release, and yeah, I really love the heavy aspect of it. But again, there's albums I do like more than this. Um, but still, this is definitely I can see why people see this as a underrated gem in its discography. Definitely deserves a lot more attention. But yeah, if you like heavy rock music, definitely give this a listen.
I am also going to give this a 9. I think that this is really the album where Bowie finds his sound, even though he doesn't really stick with it. You can find traces of this throughout his whole discography, but no two albums in his discography really sound alike, other than you could say technically Ziggy Stardust and Aladdin Sane sound similar, or Low and Heroes, but even then, there's enough differences between the two. The man really never made the same record twice, and I think that's really what makes him such a great artist. But you can kind of hear traces of this throughout the rest of his career. We had the cover, the costume. You got the cryptic lyrics, the showmanship, the just amazing songwriting, and the great instrumentation. That he always picks amazing people to be his backing band. So that's why I really think this is an underrated album in his discography, because it kind of is the gold standard that the rest of the albums we're going to talk about are going to be measured by.
Me personally, I'm gonna give this another 10 out of 10. I've said this in the last video. I'd say the second album and the third album were very neck and neck in quality. Uh, which one do I prefer? I don't know. I really don't know. Like, even when if we do an album ranking, I still don't know. Like, I'll put it out there. I'll be like, yeah, this is above this, and I'll still be like, I'm not sure about that. There'll always be like companion albums. To me, these are, even though they sound so different from each other, I've always considered these to be the companion albums of each other, of his growth as an artist. Like, 69 was like his making more cohesive music. And then this album was like him like finding his sound. So that's why I consider them to be the companion albums. And when we get to Hunky Dory, we're really gonna hear him find his sound. Like he found a sound, but he's perfecting his sound on the next album. So I am really, really excited to review that album, because that is a classic among classics.
Okay, well, thank you guys for tuning in to the Man Who Sold the World review. If you would join us next time when we review Hunky Dory, which is one of my favorite Bowie records personally. And like Nick said, he really does perfect his sound on that record. I can't wait to talk about some of the stuff on that. We got some of his biggest classics like Changes and Life on Mars on that record. It's a fantastic album. So thank you guys for watching. Remember, music is art and art is expression. We will see you later.